This is Cult Confessions with Kristy and Josie. Welcome to our podcast.
Trigger warning may contain themes of religious trauma and sexual abuse. Disclaimer: all information in this podcast is our opinion based on our experiences. We do not purport any of this content to be inherently factual and believe that each individual has the right to draw their own conclusion.
Hi, I'm Kristy.
And I'm Josie. And today on Cult Confessions, we're going to talk a little bit about a different cult than the IFB. We're going to talk a little bit about the Ruby Franke and Jodie Hildebrandt documentary that's just recently come out. A lot of this is very new for me. Never really followed her as a family vlogger, never really followed any of the story. So kind of watching this documentary with very fresh eyes. If you don't know Ruby Franke, she is a Mormon family vlogger who is now been arrested for child abuse, several counts of felony child abuse. And yeah, just this perfect, idyllic family that's not actually perfect. Something we're very familiar with in the IFB. So we watched the first episode earlier today, and we're just going to kind of talk about it and make some comparisons and talk about our thoughts.
So, if you don't know, Ruby Franke was a vlogger, and I think that during that time, vlogging, like family vlogging, was very, very popular. I think it's gotten a lot of shame put on it now, thankfully,
Sure.
like that there's not as many anymore, and there's a lot of laws starting to come out for exploiting their children, and making it so that they have to save a certain amount in a trust fund for the kids if they're going to be shown in videos. But that wasn't something that happened during this time. And it seems that through the video, like through the documentary, they mentioned that basically a lot of Mormon families did this as a job. So there were tons of Mormon families, and I think that it was almost recognized as like a ministry for
Right. I was
them.
going to say, I don't know if it was really a job as much as it was a ministry. It's missions work.
Right.
Like,
Right. It became like a ministry. Even, I would assume, even like within the church, they kind of like supported all of these vloggers showing their families and things like that. And I think the ballerina family, they're also, aren't they?
yeah, they're also Mormon.
Ballerina farm. Yeah, so it's just been interesting seeing that, and then kind of watching it slowly kind of decline like throughout the documentary of like they did kind of seem like really happy and in a really good place, and slowly it just ended up being very, very dark and scary.
Yeah, I think it also goes to show that, whatever you put on social media is doctored, right? Like, it's
Right.
edited, it's cut, I don't know, watching that and seeing how much happened in between the camera moments. Because, yeah, if you haven't watched the documentary, the family of Ruby Franke released several hundred hours of
Right.
like footage that was not put online, content that was not released because obviously it puts her in a bad light and it shows some of those very obvious red flags. Um, but whatever you put on social media is what you want people to see, and I don't know, I think that's one of the reasons I never got into it. Like, it's really dangerous to look at a social
Right.
media influencer and be like, oh, that's what I want to be like, when that's not reality.
Yeah, I feel like I remember watching some vlogging families, and or like just vlogging in general, where I kind of just like liked it because I like related to it because they did like normal things just like we
Sure.
did. But I I ended up watching Colleen Ballinger, which she was called out for a ton of stuff recently within the last few years. And it's so weird because it's like you do get that uh relationship, like the parasocial relationship where you're kind of like,
Right.
oh, I know them. They're kind of like my friend. Like
Right.
it's like we hang out every day and like we do the same stuff. Like they drink coffee too. Like
Mm-hmm.
they poop and pee also. Like, like stuff like that where it's just like I think it's within this world of like social media and internet and phones and all the things, we unfortunately connect more through that stuff, right? So
Right.
like it's very easy for us to have parasocial relationships
It
because
is.
of that and because we're not like forcing ourselves to like hang out with our friends in person or be
Right.
together in person, meet people in person. And so it's very normal, I say, for our generation to have parasocial relationships. But with that, thankfully, a lot of things are changing. Hopefully, more will change within the laws of protecting kids and protecting families, so that stuff like this doesn't happen. But it is true. I mean, I would say most people put up a front no matter what, like whenever you're around people or whenever you're in front of a camera, you're going to act a little better than you would
Right.
normally, right? You have a little bit of a guard up. And when it comes to religious families, I would say it's even more, right? So like
Because you
when
you
you,
add that whole level of scrutiny from the church too, because
right,
you're not just catering to whatever your audience is. You are required to cater to the church's standards, the church's guidelines. Like, if you're not upholding this image of what the church says that you should be doing and the church says that you should be wearing and how you should be acting and all of those things, like, that's going to get you in trouble. So it's just this whole extra scrutiny that you're under, and it's not healthy.
right. And I feel like I would see it all the time, especially with like huge families
Mm-hmm.
where they would like bring in their kids into the church service and it's like they're expected to be like perfectly still and
Oh
perfectly
yeah.
quiet. And if not, then they get smacked with like a glue stick or whatever, like
Yep.
stuff like that where it's like it is very fear based parenting. And I feel like if you're not coming from a place of love, that can become so toxic very quickly, right? Where it's like, where are the boundaries, right? Like if you're already hitting your kids and if you're threatening them
Right.
and it's all fear based, it can go very far. And I feel like you don't know where the line is of like,
Yeah.
is this okay or is this not okay? And I think that's kind of what happened. Like she ended up doing like I think that they spanked their kids and hit their kids and stuff. And then once Jody Hildebrandt came into the picture, she kind of allowed more of that to happen, like kind of wanted
Like, she
more of
encouraged
that to
it.
happen. Yeah. So um
I think
yeah, there's
even
also
I think even when it does come from a place of love, it's really dangerous, because I don't think that anybody who, from what it looked like, again, I've never watched her videos, I've never watched any of this. Like, I've literally just seen this one episode of the documentary, but it looked
mhm,
like she had this following and this audience that really looked up to her. They referred to her as America's mom. Like,
right.
I don't think anybody would have looked at that and said that woman doesn't parent her kids from a place of love.
Mm,
Still toxic, still abusive,
right.
still
Right.
wrong. So even coming from
Right.
a place of love, there's acceptable boundaries that need to be drawn.
Right. I guess I would say just like I don't feel like it's love based if you're hitting your kids. Like in my eyes, like you can say that
Yeah.
it is, but if you're hitting your kids, I don't think that you're parenting out of love. Like
Yeah. And I
that's
mean,
not
I would agree with you on a personal level, but that's not what the church thinks. That's
right.
literally the opposite. You hit your kids because you love them. You spank your kids and you
Yeah.
discipline them like that because you love them and you want them to do the right thing.
Well, yeah,
But
I feel like the church makes it seem like they go with the idea of like we need to like harden our kids so that they're like ready for the world rather than the way that I would parent and a lot of people nowadays would parent is the world is already it's already hard as it is.
right.
And like giving them like a safe haven within their parents and feeling like it's okay to feel these things,
Right.
and like keeping them kind of not sheltered, but just like what's the point of pushing them into like horrible situations and making them feel horrible when or like having a hard life when it's
Right.
going to be hard no matter what. Like
Yeah.
life is
There's a
just hard
difference
and
between like, necessary preparation and fear. Like just
right.
instilling this fear of everything's like and not allowing them to have a childhood, I think is a big part of that. Like I don't look back at my childhood and have a lot of fond memories. Like there were times that I had fun. Like it was, there were moments, but I don't look back at my childhood and think that I really had one, if that makes sense.
Right. And I
So,
think that you'll relate a lot with Sherry in this documentary and stuff because she's the oldest sister
yeah.
and she was the one to call, like she left. Obviously, she I think was old enough to leave the house and she left
Mhm.
as soon as she could. And she was the one who was like calling CPS and stuff trying to get her siblings out of the situation.
Yeah.
And the father honestly like was not good in those situations either. Like
Well, let's talk about the
I
father. Like that's one of the first notes that I had like as I was watching
okay.
this is, in the intro, it annoyed me that it didn't feel like he had any sense of responsibility or accountability for what happened in his home. And that's not to say that he has to be in charge because he's the man. He's needs to be involved because he's an equal parent. Like I just want to clarify that
I
that's where that
honestly
statement
think
is
that
coming
he's
from.
the biggest simp in the world.
Well, I don't know if I
Honestly.
go that far. But like he initially in the intro he said
I mean,
the devil knocked and we opened the door. That's how he
yeah, that's
introduced.
true.
We were the perfect family, but the devil knocked and we opened the door.
That's how he introduced this, and that made me
But I
upset because
think
I'm
that
just like,
he meant
no, you didn't do the right thing for your children. There's no accountability by saying, oh, this is the devil's fault.
well, even no, but even when he's saying that, I think when he says that, he's referring to Jody. So for him, everything before Jody was fine. Like the way that she treated the kids, the way that she hit them and everything was okay. The time that it went bad in his eyes was when Jody came into their lives. And you'll see that like with a lot of the things in the future, like with I'm sure with the other documentaries, you'll see that he kind of like makes it seem like she's the bad guy in all of this and she made Ruby worse because he even after they got arrested, he was still like simping for Ruby. And so I want to talk about the whole like list of things that you want in a husband. Did you ever do that?
So many times. Yes.
Okay, so that is very much, I don't know if anyone else has ever heard of doing this, but we were very much encouraged to make a list of attributes that you want your husband to have.
Yep.
And if he doesn't have those things, then don't ever settle.
Right. And when we say attributes, this is everything. This is I want him to
Literally
be
everything.
this hair color, this eye color, this height, this like muscular or skinny or whatever. Like and so there's physical attributes, there's personality. I want him to like animals. I want him to, I'm just thinking of all of the things from my list. Um and then there's spiritual. Oh my God, I'm sure I
You
have my
want him
list
to read the
somewhere.
Bible every
I
day.
want
You
him
want
to
him
host
to,
family devotions. I want him to be like the spiritual leader of our home. I want him to encourage our family to go to church. I want him to lead our children the way they should go. Like those are things I had on my list.
right. And
Um,
I feel like okay, so when I was dating that one guy, when I like broke up with him because he wasn't called to be a missionary, that was part of that.
yep.
And that
Yep.
was when I was deep into that like mindset of like
Yeah.
if he's not perfect, if he's not this and this and this and this, then he's not God's will for my
Yeah,
life
future
because God,
career was a
yeah,
big thing.
God will like make it happen for me.
Yep.
And
If he doesn't check every single thing on this box, then there's somebody better out there. And that's so
right. And
stupid.
it sounds like um what's her husband's name?
Kevin.
Kevin definitely, he snuck into her closet and saw her list.
Yeah, I'm very
And
unclear
he
on how he found that list. He did mention it was in her closet, but I'm like,
Right.
I'm.
So he
Mm,
found out, I don't know how, but he found out what was on her list, and he
hmm.
did everything possible to like perfect everything on her list so that he could be the one to marry her.
Yep.
And then along the top, all of the columns were the boys. My name was on there. I had a column. And so I'm just furiously taking notes, and I went home and I studied hard. I studied that stuff harder than I did my schooling, I think. We were engaged by October of 2000, and we were married by December 28th, 2000.
And to me, that's straight simp, like from the start. Where like
It
he would do anything for her.
it
And that's
is.
exactly how he is with like everything that happens with the kids, cuz like he just wanted to do everything to make her happy and to
Mm-hmm.
not lose the family that they had, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
he kind of just like went along with it. And
Right.
he doesn't take any responsibility. Like just because he's a simp doesn't mean that he shouldn't take responsibility. I'm just
Right.
saying his perspective is I want to do everything right for her because that's all I've ever wanted in life is
Right.
her. And I don't think he sees a life without her kind of thing. And so, cause after she got arrested, he was still like very much in love with her and obsessed
Mm.
with her.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know all of that part. I'm just going off like this first episode that I watched.
Yeah. So
Cuz
I've definitely followed a lot more, I would say, than you have.
oh yeah.
I watched I think I was more into I like to follow trials like and
Mm.
stuff. So specific ones I'll watch like the full trial to see like how it goes and everything. And
Yeah.
maybe after this we'll end up, watching some of those things that she said in the courtroom about her children or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it just shows like perfectionism is so toxic, thinking that like you can be this perfect little family all the time. It's not possible.
Yep.
And just because you want to quote unquote live in the light or whatever doesn't mean that like you have to be happy. One of the things that I had on my like notes was the whole like bra shopping with brother.
Yeah,
So
that
like
was
Okay, we'll see what they have.
Still get that face when you go shopping.
You're just being a good sport and coming along for the ride, Chad. Come. What did he do?
He whistled. He's like,
Okay, Abby, I think I found what we need.
it dude,
it
sharing
seemed like she started getting very so like it seemed very happy family, beautiful, so sweet, like so cute, normal, very normal things like
right.
going grocery shopping, cooking together, to more extreme stuff where they were getting so much money that they were like a trip to Hawaii, a trip to
Right.
Disneyland or whatever. And then it started getting clickbaity.
Right.
And so I think she was just being very smart about like how to run the business and stuff because
Oh yeah.
she knew, which the kids said, that Sherry and Chad, I think, Sherry and Chad, they were like the main reason that people were watching. And
Right.
I think he said that part of that was because they were the same age, around the same age. Like the viewers were like the same age as these kids.
Right.
And that's crazy. Like it's just to think about like a lot of vlogging channels, kids are the ones watching them.
Yeah,
So
that's crazy to me.
yeah. Well, and I think it's because it's like the same thing as like if I was watching a mom with kids the same age as mine.
Mm.
It's like just like that like you can relate to
Yeah.
them and you feel like
Yeah.
connections, right? So like if there's a kid that's the same age as you, I feel like that would be interesting to watch. But yeah, that's crazy. Broad like putting obviously she's like fishing for
Oh, super. Yeah. Yeah.
views and like dangerous kind of views if you're saying bra shopping with brothers. Like
Right.
that's like both like sexual and like incesty. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. I none of that is okay. And like again, just watching that first episode, the amount of private like personal moments that were just exploited for views. Um I don't know. It's not good parenting. It's not good humaning. Like it's not okay.
Like
Like
morally it's just wrong
it's
like
it's
in every
it's
way.
just plain wrong. It really is. And the amount of moments that they had on camera just watching that, I'm just like, I feel icky watching this. I don't belong here. I don't want to see this. This is not my
And
business.
I know a lot of like I know another family, it's the Ballinger family. I'm pretty sure they have like a huge family as well and they only have one daughter and they did like my first period or
Mm.
something, like a video like that.
Oh
And
yeah, the eight passengers that did a somebody going through puberty and stuff like that. And
yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah,
it's
and they'll
one
do
thing.
like the Ballingers do like gymnastic videos. So like they'll
Mm,
do their kids like spreading their legs for gymnastics, like in a gymnastic pose or something as the thumbnail.
okay.
And it's like, what are you thinking? Like they're
What kind
obviously
of
just thinking
audience are
about a
you trying,
paycheck.
right? What kind of
Right.
audience are you trying to attract with that? Because
Right.
that's, I don't know, that's disgusting. I think
Yeah, it is.
one thing that I also noted that I was really uncomfortable with was like family prayer being recorded and
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. Like I know that you're not religious anymore and that's fine, but like for me, prayer is a very personal thing. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
it's really
pray on camera.
yeah,
Like
it's really
it
icky
cheapens
like
it. It
pulling it
cheapens
out.
it. Yeah. It cheapens it and it makes it not as sincere and it's not as real. By putting that on a video, I feel like they're actually doing the opposite of what they were trying to do, was be like, oh, this is this perfect little religious family and we take religion so seriously and religion is this huge important thing to us. And for me, like seeing prayer on camera, I'm just like, that is so cheap and
Mhm.
it's so fake. Like
Yeah.
if you're saying the words just to sound pretty for the sake of views, like that's fake. That's not real prayer for me, and that really
Which
bothered
I mean,
me.
I kind of feel that way with a lot of prayer because a lot of prayer is just very like dear heavenly Father, like
Right, there's a
hallowed
lot of
be thy
like
name. Like there's
uh,
so much
yeah,
fluff that's just like
there's a lot of vernacular, and it's being, especially like growing up IFB, like there's a lot of therefores and heretofores and
yeah.
just the same thing over and over again that they say, like you said, dear heavenly Father and the Lord's Prayer and everything like this. Like it's cheap. It's cheap. If you're really trying to
Yeah.
promote a real relationship with God, that's not that's not
And I
real.
mean, it seemed to be working. Like it seemed to bring their young followers to
Yeah.
Mormonism. And it seemed that that really touched Ruby that
Alright, so I'm Finn, and because of 8 passengers, I'm gonna join the Church of Jesus Christ. I already say.
she was, doing good for the cause of Christ and stuff. But
Right. I think she just was excited to have more attention on her, honestly. Like the whole vibe of this is narcissism, like extreme narcissism. And like I'm not a therapist and I also don't like how often that term is thrown around insincerely, but this woman is clearly desperate for attention, but only the positive attention that puts her in a good light, and desperate to be seen as perfect. And
right.
that just screams narcissism to me. She's just obsessed with this perfect image of herself.
Yeah, I the documentary definitely makes it seem like it was just like sunshine and rainbows until it wasn't. And I'm sure it wasn't that drastic. I'm sure there was a lot going on behind the scenes that
Yeah.
they just
Well,
didn't
it sounded
nobody
like
saw.
it. I
And
don't know. It sounded like it in the documentary that there was a lot of this like transitionary period where it went from like super fun, we're having so much fun, this is exciting, this is awesome, to this big blow up, whatever. Like it sounded like there was a lot of behavior in the children that was different and a lot of red flags.
well, I feel like what I was getting was like, hey, like we have this beautiful life because of this, because of
Mm-hmm.
us vlogging. So you need to like be happy and
Right.
do this so that we can do fun things. And it's like they're in Hawaii and the kids are like, ah, this isn't very fun. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because they're kids. They don't understand and they're probably tired
It's also not
because,
their responsibility. They're children. Like they
well,
don't
but,
need to
but
be
the thing is,
working.
like, yeah, but the thing is, just because you think that they should be having fun and enjoying things because you paid for them to come to
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii or whatever, like, doesn't mean that they have to enjoy it. Like,
Yep.
kids get tired. Like, I'm
Right.
sure the trip alone was super exhausting. Then it's
Yeah.
like the time change, and then it's just like, oh, cool, like another beat. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's kind
Right.
of how I would assume little kids would think of Hawaii. Like, they probably wouldn't think it was
Right.
the coolest thing ever. Um, but it seemed like they kind of started acting out where they were just probably just exhausted, like tired of having
Burnt out.
to constantly be on and like putting on a show to the point where, you know, in the beginning, their personalities and how they were like as they are was very entertaining. But then
Mm-hmm.
it got to a point where the mom was like, no, you need to act this certain way because this is what's going to get us more views. And
Right.
so it really just like changed to the mom telling them how they need to react and telling them how they need to feel and like telling Sherry like that she didn't like the way she was acting and she's like this is what who I am and she's like we'll change it.
Oh, yeah. No, there was this clip of.
Hold on! Hold on! Out! What was that look for?
Sorry, I just get nervous. Wait,
Stop getting smeared! Look! Just be yourself.
that is myself.
Well, then change it.
Their daughter, and they were trying to record something and she messed up like a line or whatever she was supposed to say, and she was like, I'm sorry, I'm nervous, and mom's just like, just be yourself, and she's like, oh, I am, and she said, okay, then change it,
Yeah,
pretend to be happy, and I'm just
right.
like,
And I think that's
what
when
the
it
hell?
started. I'm sure that started like the change for the kids because that was just so much pressure to put on the kids
Right. It is. It's a lot
where
of
they felt
pressure.
like they couldn't just be themselves around their own home, you know,
Yeah.
and being shared to a million plus people
Mm-hmm.
on the daily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like imagine if we were like having to record a podcast like 24/7 and never
I
getting
wouldn't
a
do
break
it.
to like do
I wouldn't
anything
do
else.
it.
Like yeah, and the kids have no say in it, like
Yeah.
none at all. And so it's just it's all very toxic and very um abusive, honestly.
It is.
But the son started acting out
Right.
and
Well, acting out.
I would say he was probably just exhausted and wanting to
I
go
think that
back to
he
that
was
happy
exhibiting
family.
I think he was exhibiting normal symptoms of burnout, honestly.
Yeah.
Like from what it sounds like, he's got issues with authority and he's unhappy clearly and not wanting to pretend to be happy. That's classic burnout.
Mhm.
Like the kid is exhausted, and I think this is such a big problem I have with religion is that, you know, when your child is acting out or whatever, like your immediate reaction is to try to correct the behavior, not figure out the root cause of the behavior and address it. Because immediately it's just like, you need to act right. You need to keep sweet. You need to
Right.
smile. You need to blah, 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 whatever. And that's so common in religious spaces. And it's disgusting and stupid. But that's kind of how it sounds like that's how Jody Hildebrandt was brought into the equation, was as a therapist for their son, which also what is happening with parents being in the room while their child is doing therapy?
Yeah, that's weird,
Fuck
but
all of that.
that's very religious though, because
Yeah.
I remember, I mean, I still know to this day, like, I remember, I think there were comments on like a review on this doctor's place in Idaho where the parents were like, "Oh, they ask your kid if they want the parent in the room. That's so ridiculous, blah blah blah." And it's like, "No, it's not.
It's not
It's
ridiculous at all.
it's so important to
Kids are
have that
people. They
option."
have autonomy. They need to have
Yeah, but
autonomy.
those things are in place for their protection, for the kids'
Exactly.
protection, so that if they are getting abused, they're able to talk to someone about it,
Yep.
whether it's from the parents or not. Like any
Yeah.
kind of abuse, it
Exactly.
allows them to feel like they have a safe space to speak on whatever is happening,
Yep.
even if it's not against the parents, right?
Right.
And it's like, to me, if you, it's just so confusing. Like, you want your kids to have like their own like responsibilities and whatever, but then like they're not allowed to go to therapy alone or go to the doctor
Yeah.
alone.
So in a lot of religions, and especially like hardcore religions, culty vibes, kids are expected to do a lot of housework. Kids are expected to do a lot of parenting, especially for families with lots of children. Um, like they're we call it parentified, but they're very grown up. They're treated like grown ups in the ways that benefit the parents because, oh, I don't
Mhm.
have to do the dishes. I don't have to clean my house. It's my children's responsibility now. I'm delegating. No. But then they're not treated like people in the sense of I have feelings and it's okay to have feelings and it's okay to have opinions and things like that. Like you're not given any opportunity to speak your mind about anything. You're just told what to do and you do it. That's what you do as a kid in a cult. Like
Mhm.
that's how you're raised. And then you continue the cycle as an adult because that's what's exemplified for you. My mom said, do this. I did it. So this is what I expect of my children. And the cycle goes on and on and on and on and on. But you're not actually treated like a human.
Right. And so what happened was they brought in Jody Hildebrandt, and she was someone who was licensed and worked for the church, like the Mormon church. And she ended up getting, I think, disbarred or whatever. I don't know what it's called for therapy.
I
I'm
don't
pretty
know.
sure she ended up being like kicked out of it from the church or whatever.
Okay.
Um,
I didn't even know she worked for the
I'll
church.
have
Okay.
to I'll have to look it up. But no, yeah, she worked for the Mormon church and she was very much like a high ranked counselor where she was like one of the best.
Okay.
Um, and what ended up happening was they ended up taking away all of his stuff. So like his phone, his tablet, literally everything away
Yeah.
from him, his bedroom away from him. And it ended up being a huge thing on social media because they found out in a weird way. And Ruby was like laughing about it in the video
Right.
about
He just like
how,
randomly dropped it in a video.
right, how Chad didn't have his room for 6 months. And
Mm.
I remember this happening online and how everyone was outraged. And it was because children are developing humans, they're growing and developing, and they need a good place to sleep. Like they need a bed
Right.
that's good to sleep on. They shouldn't be sleeping on the ground because that's not good for their development.
Right.
And so that was like the biggest thing I think that people were really upset about. And um
I think
that
that is
yeah, like
I mean that's valid. I think my first reaction to being like this teenage boy doesn't have his own room is just like you're in a house full of sisters and you have no privacy.
mhm,
What does that do to your mental state? Like there's this physical development issue and there's also this emotional and mental development issue where like that's I don't know, that's heartbreaking for me.
yeah,
Like I had my door taken off my hinges a few times as a kid because
I
my
hate
parents
that.
didn't think that I deserved privacy because I was being rebellious. And
I hate
like,
that. I think that's like one of the worst things you could do. Like
yeah.
I I had a friend that they
I
took
still have
the
my
door
bed at
away from
least.
their like they took their door away from, I don't know, I think she was like 5.
Oh my god.
And I'm like,
That's
do
just a
you want to
baby.
have I'm like, do you want to have a good relationship with your kid or not? Because I feel like doing those types of things is like making it so they can't trust you.
Exactly.
Like, and it's the stupidest thing. Like, why does it matter if they have a door? Like, they need some sort of privacy sometimes too.
Yep.
Like, they're their own human. They deserve privacy just for being a human. Like, they don't need to earn privacy.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so they ended up doing that, and then they ended up sending him away to desert wilderness therapy. And I believe that they get dropped off in the middle of the desert and they have to fend for themselves. And it builds character and makes them be more responsible because if they don't find food or make fire or whatever, they're going to die out there in the wilderness.
That
And
seems
so he
healthy.
went, yeah, so he went to this. And when he came back, I think that he felt like it did help him be more responsible, I guess, and more reliant on himself.
Where did you go?
Anasazi.
Okay, why did you go there?
Because I was a bad boy.
Where did
Chad today has just entered the Anasazi Foundation Wilderness Therapy Program, where he's going to spend the next 8 to 10 weeks living in the
Anasazi Desert?
yeah, the desert mountains of Arizona. And he'll be with counselors and other youth that are trying to figure some things out. So you're probably wondering, what did Chad do? Okay, we're not even going to entertain that stuff, but it's an accumulation of things over years, well before we ever started YouTubing or well before we ever got into social media. And it's reached a point where Chad needs to develop some very basic maturity and skills that he's going to need as an adult.
I think that's tough because I think that he started displaying the behaviors that his parents expect.
This conversation, I think it would be a great place to end the vlog today. We just told Chad that there's a hashtag on Instagram going around that started when you came to Anasazi, and it's hashtag free Chad.
As you can see, I'm comfortable. I'm not a slave or anything. I'm eating my cupcake. I'm good. You don't need to free me. I enjoyed this place.
So he assumed that it worked because the response from his parents was positive.
Right. And then they threatened him with, like, if he did one more thing wrong, he would go to like he would go to military school until he was 18. And so basically they were going to send him away. Because of that, because of the fear-based parenting, he was so terrified that he didn't want to do any of those things, and he like changed his way right away. Obviously, it's like to Ruby and to the parents and the family that the therapy was working so well for him, but it wasn't. It was just making him terrified of losing his family and forcing his hand to like act a certain way, even though that's not the person that he is, right? And the way that he's truly feeling. But yeah, I know that those types of camps are like it's not okay to do that, the therapy in the wilderness. Like, it's just not a smart idea, and
seems like you're going to need a lot of liability insurance for that.
Yeah, it's not okay to do that, to send your kids in the middle of the desert to teach them responsibility, I guess.
Whatever.
I don't know.
I think one of the funnier moments, I guess, of the documentary for me was like so at some point in whatever chronology this is happening, this family moves. So they move into a new house, and then so some of their neighbors were interviewed on the documentary, and it made me laugh so hard. Like the way that some of these neighbors talked about them. Oh, she wasn't really a very nice lady because she didn't throw parties and she didn't want to go to brunch. And I'm just like, what? Like, I agree that she wasn't a very nice lady, but I don't think that's because she didn't want to go to throw parties and go to brunch. Like, what kind of privilege are you talking about, woman? It's
Right.
so
Like the
dumb.
way that I think the documentary kind of starts that way, right? About like the happiness community where everyone's
I
happy.
had literally called Happy Valley.
Yeah, and the therapist is like, yeah, everyone's happy, but
But they live in a
everyone
bubble.
also tries to be like a perfectionist, and that's not good for you. And
Right.
he also apparently worked for Jody Hildebrandt, so we'll
Yeah.
see what he has to say in the next
I know. I'm
episode.
looking
But
forward to it.
yeah, that was just the first episode of Devil in the Family: The Fall of Ruby Franke, and it's on Hulu. And we just watched the first episode, but we are going to watch the other two um here soon.
Yeah.
But this was the first episode reacting to this, and it's
Just trying
just
to dissect it. Like I'm like I reacting's an easy way to put it, but like I'm really trying to just dissect it honestly and understand it, because the dynamics that go into something like this happening is just, it's so complex. And I mean, looking back, right, it's always easier to look back and analyze something, but like, I don't know, looking back, comparing shit like this to shit that happened in the cult that we grew up in, and I don't know, it's fascinating. Like, it's horrifying, but it's fascinating.
right. I think that it'll be interesting to see what you think of the things that happened and how people reacted and so on
Yeah.
and so forth, especially the husband.
Yeah, one
Um,
of the things that he said that kind of caught me off guard was I had no idea that this was happening in my family. And I I think there's a lot of levels to that, because I think that, again, as an involved parent, which is the expectation of every parent, you had to have known some level of this was happening in your family. Like, you had to have known that something wasn't right. And again, there's no accountability, no responsibility from this parent for what happened to his children, and that's very disappointing.
no, he doesn't get in trouble for anything. And
But
I
I
think a lot of people after watching this documentary have been he needs to also face
but
consequences.
I also think that there's this level of society is harder on men sometimes when it comes to those kinds of things. And I don't think that's fair. So I'm trying to think of this like purely from behavior, and like understanding that that's a bias that I have, because I think that that's fair to an extent, that you don't know what your partner is doing all the time. You don't know everything that's going on in your family. I think that that's fair to an extent, especially in a religious structure like this where so much of the parenting is put on the mother.
Mhm.
And does that excuse it? No. But I also think that there is some reasonable lack of responsibility. Not a lot, but a little bit. Just a little bit. That he gets a little bit of a pass from me on that. Like there's a little bit of plausible deniability, I guess, that I can see.
Yeah, I mean, the only way I guess I would see it is that he was at work a lot of the time.
Sure.
And I don't know, like, how I don't know if he, like, stuck to if he, like, still worked after they started making 100 grand a month or whatever,
Mm,
if he was still working or not. It seemed like he definitely got more involved after he saw how much they
paychecks.
would be making.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think that it was very telling when they said, like, I didn't know this was happening. Well, he's like, literally cut, like, we're gonna cut this part of her, like, literally telling this kid to shut up by putting their hand over their mouth. You know what I mean? Like,
When you are gonna cut that out. You get down and you be quiet. This isn't your turn. Now sit.
And cut.
Yeah, and we're cutting that out.
The husband was the one that
Right.
said cut to that.
But
And
also,
so
even
he
in
knew that there were certain things going on, but
yeah, certain things, yes, but all of it, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I believe that he knew everything that she was doing to their kids. Because if you're getting charged with 6 counts of felony child abuse, there's more there than telling your kid to shut up. Like,
right.
there's more there than yelling at your kids. Like,
So
is yelling
I'd
at your
like
kids okay? No. But is it felony child abuse? No.
so it's hard because I know what happens. And I feel like he got off easy because he kind of just like left his kids to
Like,
be
fend for
hurt.
themselves?
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll see.
We'll
You'll
see.
see.
We'll see. But I mean, I guess that's my perception of him. I guess like just after the first episode is like,
right.
I think that he's not taking accountability and responsibility where he needs to be. But I also think that there's a level of plausible deniability in this that's reasonable because men in general in religious like environments aren't expected to do a lot of parenting. They're not
Yeah.
expected to be involved. So the expectation that I would have for my husband or like I would have for any reasonable parent is to be involved and to understand those things that are going on. But in this situation specifically, I would understand how there's things that he didn't know.
Yeah. So we shall see, and
We'll see.
we'll see the reaction of Josie as we go on.
Josie has a lot of opinions, as we know.
Yes. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. We are kind of just going to start a series of reacting to different religious television shows, I guess.
I'm going to make Kristy watch Sister Wives.
And so we shall see how this goes, but hopefully you enjoy this. And tell us what you think below. Give us all the tea. Don't spoil it, though.
Oh, yeah, no spoilers.
Don't
no
spoil
spoilers.
it for Josie. She is new to this case, so she doesn't know very much about it. So.
Nope. But I think that's it for today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Like, subscribe, click all the buttons, and we will see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Share your story.
If you have been affected by religious trauma or abuse, we want to hear your story.
Even if you're not ready to share publicly, we would be happy to listen and support you on your journey, free of judgment or pressure.
Please email us at cultconfessionskjv@gmail.com to get started.
We believe you.